tell my younger self as far as writing stuff, because a lot of this stuff is organic. You learn it as you go.
It's strange. It's nothing I ever expected.
I want to tell my stories by eliciting emotion in my audience.
So it's an organic process. They sort of layer on top of each other. Each one makes the next layer more obvious to me.
This whole thing could not have gone any smoother.
I usually say squad only in groups of 3. I like to batch them, like squat, squat, squat.
Look, guys, this one's not going to be like normal. It's just not.
Welcome to the Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is the mellifluous Kagan Williams.
There's a big difference. It's like, are you talking or are you doing? What's happening here?
We still have all the pets that think, oh, it's time to eat. It doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m.
My name is Walt, and this is Coffee and Concepts on Keystroke Medium.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Live here on Keystroke Medium. I am Josh Hayes here with Chuck Manley.
What up?
And returning to the show for a second time, the first time since 2017. He was in season 2, episode 47. It looks like June 12th, 2017.
Wow.
The author of the Polity series, Universe novels, and the brand new Weaponized standalone novel, Neal Asher. Neal, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Hi, guys.
It's first of all, that intro, can I just say, epic on all scales.
I have got to get you a better picture.
No, I love that picture because it's you. That picture is like, that's just you as volumes.
It's like a mini Pearl rip off or something.
Welcome everybody to the live show. Let's see. Trucker Charlie D is the first comment of the day. He gets the Keystroke Medium golf clap of appreciation. Thank you. Dean the Colder is here. Welcome. Corey is here. Yes, Corey. It's an early show today. It's early for us, but it's also late for Neal, which is why we shifted the time around.
8 o'clock here.
Yeah, 8. Man, whew. That's crazy. It's like he's already done for the day, and we're like halfway through. That's time travel almost. Who do we have? We had Casey Azell on a show a couple months back when she was in Japan, and it was actually
like 4 a.m.
It was like the next day. Yeah. She was doing it the next day. Then she was in the future.
It was awesome.
Yeah. So good times.
It's been a minute, man.
It's been a long time, Chuck, since you've been on the show dealing with a whole bunch of life stuff, which is kind of crazy.
Cuts into my day.
I tell you what, man, I have been knocking out the words and reading crazy books. I just finished Servants of War by Larry Correia, and now I'm like neck deep into Peter Nealon's Ice and Monsters book, and it's fantastic. And like as military sci-fi goes, like I consider myself like pretty okay at the genre, like writing this genre, and I'm reading this dude's fiction and I'm like, I know absolutely nothing. I am such a just a phony reading this guy. I'm like, God,
don't let that imposter syndrome get you, man.
Oh yeah. So let's do our updates real quick. I'll go first. I'm almost done with a short story I'm writing for Jeff Haskell in his Grimm's War universe. It's a short story that features one of the Marines in his story, and this is her first operation when she first joins the Marines, set years before the main series, Jeff series. That's about 9,000 words. I've got about 2,000 left to go, I think. And if we can get it in fast enough, it might be included in the third book in his trilogy that comes out, I think, next month, but I don't know if we're going to have it in soon enough to slide it into the release for that book, but we'll see. I am 2 chapters away from finishing Tranquility 3. And so that trilogy will be done and out. And I've got some interesting news coming on that too in the next few weeks that I can't really share right now. But hopefully in a couple weeks I will be able to. And yeah, funny story about Weaponized. Well, we'll talk about here later. Thanks to Neal. No, it's all fun and we've already discussed it. It's the series that started out as Savage Stars, which became Weaponized because Savage Stars was already taken.
Oh yeah.
May or may not be changing because Neal decided to steal Weaponized as a title and whatever. It's fine. I don't hate you. I'm not bitter about it at all.
No, of course not.
As I said to you, though, mentioned in my books quite often is the war when the AIs took over, and that was called the Quiet War.
Oh yeah, true.
And I wanted to. Well, I've thought about doing a book about that.
Yeah.
Of course, the perfect title would be Quiet War, but was it Paul
I looked it up,
Corley?
you mentioned it the last time. I can't remember what it was. Peter McCauley. Yeah.
Peter McCauley, sorry.
Paul, you're right. Paul McCauley.
All right, Paul McCauley. So he's used that. So that's left me buggered on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks, Justin. I love my Love Me Wall too. And yes, my on the air sign is off because for some reason, sometimes my camera sees it. And then sometimes it doesn't. And I don't know why. So whatever. Now it's on. You're happy. Now the on air sign is on, Luke. So yeah, good times. I'm just cruising along. I'm already at like I think 2,600 words, 2,700 words today. I was cruising this morning. I was happy to get all those words before we had this. That now that it is summertime, the kids have been home for the last week of summertime, which has been interesting to say the least. But my parents have graciously offered to take them for 2 days out of the week and keep them at their house. They live in the same town as me, so I can have a couple of days at least to have some peace and quiet. And so, yeah, it'll be a challenging summer, but I think it'll be a good time. And that's all I have. Chuck, do you want to go next and we'll let Neal wrap it up?
Sure. Let's see. It's been a solid month since Indeed. I've been on the show. So let me think a second. School is out now, so my daughter's insane softball schedule is lightened up quite a bit, which has given me more time to dive back into Jack Darque 3. Way behind on it, but little bites of it get going.
Yeah.
Wife's traveling a lot for work, and really it's just been, what it usually is with me is just chasing these kids and trying to get my words in where I can. One of my granddaughters is supposed to come stay with us here in the near future for a week, so that'll probably take a bite out of my time, and just, same old, man. Just getting it done as best I can.
Yeah, I hear that, man. I forgot to mention that we went and saw Top Gun this weekend, and holy crap.
Was it good? My son went to see it, and he said he wanted me and him to go see it because he was so impressed with it. Oh, I'm also reading Kagan the Damned by Jonathan Maberry. Excellent so far fantasy novel. I think it's his first foray into epic fantasy, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. Reminds me, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of what Larry Correia did with his Son of the Black Sword series.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, Kagan the Damned. Check that one out. I'm about halfway through it, I think, and it's really good. What else? What have I been watching? Not a lot. Usually, if I've got downtime, I try and spend it with my books, but my son and I did watch like most of the new season of Stranger Things, and it's really
I need
good.
to get caught up on that. I think
Really
I watched some of the second season, but then didn't watch any more of it.
Third season was all right. It was pretty good. This season, excellent. Enjoying the hell out of it. Yeah, and they're going to do a fifth season and call it a show.
I would recommend seeing Top Gun if you have the chance to see it. if you were to rate sequels, Terminator 2, Aliens, Bad Boys 2, Top Gun, Maverick.
Well,
that's how good the sequel is.
That is high praise, because those are all really good sequel wise.
And it's not like, it's not derivative. It's like, I remember when the first trailer came out and everybody was like, I can't believe that Tom Cruise is still flying fighter pilots. There's no way at 50 years old he would still be flying fighter. There was so much outrage, but it all makes sense when you watch the movie, and it's logical sense, and it's great acting, great story. Yeah.
Not much chance to see it here, I'm afraid.
in your nice long island there in the Mediterranean.
No. Well, the cinema in the local town closed about 5 years ago. I think the nearest one is about 60 miles away. So.
Oh wow. Well, maybe when it comes out on streaming, shouldn't be that long.
You want to hear
what about you, Neal? Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, what you up to, bud?
Well, not much new writing, I'm afraid, because I've been I just seem to be doing endless editing lately. I mean, you know about Weaponized, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've been doing. I was editing the next one, which is called War Bodies. So I was editing that, and then editing on Weaponized when it came back from the copy editors and so on. And then I decided to do something that I've been putting off for quite a while, which is put together a collection of my short stories, fantasy stories, and all this sort of thing, which would include the one Bad Traveling.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
because that's only appeared once in a collection that I think it's out of print now. It was called Space Pirates. But I've been putting together this collection, and these are stories that go back, some of them, 30 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I've been back on the editing front with all that, like going backwards and forwards through these stories, resisting the temptation to take out things that have become anachronisms, basically, in these stories as well. It's like in some stories where somebody's referring to like a mobile phone as a bit of a status symbol. Yeah.
Right. Right.
It's not the case now. And people like, I don't know if you saw Mason's Rats.
Yep.
Well, the salesman in the stories, I mean, he arrives with a Filofax, do you remember those?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I remember having like the first like Nokia wood grain phone, and no one else had a phone, and I was like, yeah, I can play Snake on my phone. What can you do at all? And then the Razor came out, and I was like, it's a flip phone. I could flip it out. And now, there's really nothing special you can do with a cell phone. Like, you can't pull out and go, I have an iPhone. What do you have? Because everybody has an iPhone now.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, some of these stories, they're coming back from, the age when they were first coming in and so on. I mean, I can remember I was a little while, a couple of years ago, I went back to reading some old science fiction, some of the, the really old stuff like A. Van Vogt and people like that. And I did a review of it, reviews of these books, and I titled it like Antique Futures. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Cool.
I like that.
And then now I'm reading my own stories and going, oh hell. God, I'm old.
I feel your pain, man.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I've got some other questions that I want to ask about your writing and / editing stuff, but since we're talking about the short stories now, volume 3 of Love, Death, and Robots came out on Netflix here recently. You were featured in volume 1 and then 3, volume 2 and then
2, then 3.
And speaking of Bad Traveling, Justin says Bad Traveling was the best episode of season 3. The captain was an incredibly compelling protagonist, and the twist was both surprising and earned. Very rare these days. I loved both of the pieces, and so I'm curious on like your inspirations for the original stories and how closely were they translated to the what you see now in the Netflix anthology.
Well, I mean, there were three of them, wasn't there? The Snow in the Desert is in the second season. Bad Traveling and Mason's Rats in the third season. When I first watched Snow in the Desert, I was going, oh no, they haven't done that, and they haven't done that. But it had been so long since I myself had read the story. I didn't pick up a lot on what the changes they'd made. Second time I watched it, I thought, bloody brilliant, loved it. Yeah. They've been Bad Traveling. It's somebody said to me, it's the trolley problem. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Yeah.
It's the
you let it go one way to kill one guy in order to save the other 5 people on the other track.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
It's like, does math equal ethics, basically?
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a trolley problem in that, according to what one person was saying to me. Do they let the creature get to the island and kill loads and loads of islanders, or do we kill just the crew of this ship? But as I pointed out to somebody that said this to me, in the actual story, it's a lot messier than that. Yeah. The idea of the trolley problem is basically a justification for murder. Yeah, exactly. Because the crew threw him to the monsters. So, I mean, that was changed. And then you get to, but I still love it. I mean, I take the view that, like, I do my art. If they take it, they can do their art. Fine. Yeah. The story will always exist.
Right.
With Mason's Rats, I mean, that's that was changed quite a bit. But then again, Mason's Rats isn't one story; it's 3 stories. There's 3 stories there. Yeah. So what they basically followed the first story, but then took an altered ending from one of the other stories and put that onto the first one. So, but they did it well. They got the spirit of the thing, and I love that as well. I mean, it's just great stuff.
I thought it was hilarious, hilarious and gruesome at the same time, which it's very difficult to have to the juxtaposition of like blood and guts and just ripping bodies apart to going, that was freaking hilarious is those are all of those stories are old ones, very old ones, probably, well, more than 20 years old. And how do you think do you know how they got picked up for the anthology? I mean, is it?
Well, that is I mean, this is the sort of stuff you want to hear. That's a long story.
Yeah.
Many years ago, I was looking at YouTube, and this video. Oh, my earphones dropped out. Found this video, and it was called Rockfish. Yeah. It was called Rockfish.
Yeah.
And it was a CGI video, and it was, for the time, it was really, really good. I thought it was great. And unusually, there was an email there attached to it. So I sent an email off to this, and I said, I said something along the lines of, "Oh, this was great. It won't be long till you won't need actors." Yeah.
Right.
Something like this. Guy emailed me back, said, "Oh, great. Glad to hear you liked it. I've got some of your books on my shelf." Yeah.
Nice.
And it turned out that this guy was Tim Miller, the creator of Love, Death and Robots, etc. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we had a little bit of a chat, and then a little bit later on, he came back to me and he said he was doing this project, which very much the same as how Love, Death and Robots turned out, but heavy metal movie.
Yeah.
Apparently there's been these movies before where it's a series of animations. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course he said to me, have you got any stories? Which is, you know, probably
one or two.
It was probably a foolish thing to say, judging by the attachment he got on the email I sent back to him.
Do I?
But these stories were taken for heavy metal. Yeah. Snow in the Desert, Bad Traveling, Mason's Rats. He even got me to write another 2 stories for him. One was he wanted a battle between elves and orcs based on Rorke's Drift. So I wrote that for him, and that's
interesting.
Called, that's called Half Breed. And then there was another one where he basically wanted dinosaurs killing each other in a ruined city. Anyway, they took all that for this heavy metal, and this is years and years and years ago. Directors involved were Fincher, Del Toro, Campbell, others, Cameron, sorry, and you know, people like this. And this project, when it was done, was supposed to go to Paramount. Something went wrong there, and Paramount said no.
Mm.
They ended up selling it off, trying to sell it off all over the place, and failing. Yeah. Apparently, they took it to Tom Cruise because he has a film company or whatever. And this is what I'm told by Tim Miller. Tom Cruise looked at Snow in the Desert and said that would make a feature film by itself, which I think that's, you know, cool point there.
Yeah. Right.
But then what happened was the Paramount bought the idea back of heavy metal, but not the stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when Tim Miller came up to do Love, Death and Robots, they weren't going to use my stories because of the possible legal ramifications that Paramount might have some sort of claim on Love, Death and Robots or something like that. And that's possibly why you didn't see any of my stories in the first one.
Yeah.
And then they appeared in the second and third. So, but I mean, if you look at that, there was a New York Times article where they interviewed Fincher, and he was talking about Bad Traveling, and he was saying that they got artwork for Bad Traveling, which was been sitting in an office somewhere for like 12 years. So I mean,
wow.
So this is how it all came about.
I can only imagine what went through your mind when you heard that he was going to direct Bad Trap. But David Fincher is one of my all-time favorite directors. Like, I loved The Game, even Alien 3, which people absolutely blast as being the worst Alien movie, minus like Alien Resurrection. Maybe I absolutely loved Alien 3, but like 7, Fight Club. All those movies are. I remember watching Fight Club, and when the movie was over, I was just like emotionally drained because it was so good.
Yeah, 7 did that to me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 7. Oh.
7 is one of those, like, it's
what's in the box.
Yeah. It's one of those movies that has like the ultimate closed loop, anti-closure, like anti-good feeling, but it's the best. From a storytelling standpoint, it tells a complete story all the way around, and I absolutely loved it.
It was super well done, yes.
Yeah, that was.
I like that final shot where you're like, "What's in the box?" But and it never shows it, but you just see that little wisp, of golden hair, between the flaps on the box. You just see just enough to go.
Yeah. It's one of the only endings that I can think of that the bad guy won, but also the good guy won too. I mean, but the good guy being Freeman's character, he won because he sold it. So, I mean, it's kind of a shitty ending for Pitt's character, but
Really sucked for Paltrow.
Well, yeah, that's true.
No, what
did
you
get?
You were
did you get
saying,
to discuss that at all with Fincher? Did you get to talk to him about your thoughts about it? Or was it just kind of a here's the story and he's running with it?
No, I just got told that here's the story and they're running with it. Then they saw. Did I see some artwork? No, I didn't. I just went with it.
Yeah.
The other one was it Mason's Rats? Mason's Rats was edited by Joe Abercrombie. It's not edited. The script was written by Joe Abercrombie. So I sort of thought that's probably a pair of safe hands there. So
yeah,
I was okay with that.
Well, and it, knowing that he wrote the script, it's obvious. Like I've read his First Law trilogy, and phenomenal books. Galactic is one of my favorite antagonists of all time, and knowing that he wrote Galactic, and then watching Mason's Rats, like having that thought in the back of my head of like, oh yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, definitely the body count and the amount of blood went up.
Right. That's amazing.
But what you were saying, how did I feel about learning that Fincher was doing it?
Yeah,
I was great, yeah, but to a certain extent, because of everything that went before,
right,
and all the stuff I was told about, all the different directors that were getting involved, like all these big names and so on. Then hearing it again, it loses some of its, but not all of it,
right. Because you're like, I'll believe it when I see it type.
Yeah, well, you get to that stage. It's like with lots of, with my books, I get a message from quite frequently, from Macmillan, and it says, oh, so-and-so is thinking about taking your, wants to find out about turning Gridlinked into a film or something like this. Yeah. And I've reached the stage now where whenever I hear that, I'll go, yeah, right, whatever.
Yeah.
Get on with the day job.
You'll believe it when you see it, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And, there's, I know several authors that are in various stages of production. Some have actual deals, some are just talking about, some are even just talking with people that are writing just the script or the treatment or whatever. And yeah, it's crazy. You think about novels that are being made into movies now. The two that come to mind now, just right now, are The Gray Man and what's the other one that's coming out on Amazon? The Terminal List. And The Gray Man is, I think, easily 10, 12 years old, and the same thing with The Terminal List. And those are both like action thriller movies that were novels before, but it takes so much time. Like you said 20 years for your short stories before they finally came out and hit Netflix. And there's some people that are just experiencing them for the first time, maybe have no idea that they were written 20 years ago. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about what you're doing over the last couple of weeks have been editing, and I know I can follow you on social media and I watch your posts about I've done my work for the day, I'm going out to kayak and all that stuff, and I know that you strive for the 2,000 words a day. How do you track that while you're editing in your process?
I don't.
Nice and succinct answer. I like it.
Yeah.
No, when I sit down to when all the editing is out of the way and I've done this collection and that collection and I sit down to write another book, that's when I start tracking it.
Okay.
And generally I stick to it, but no. Comes to editing, it's just sit down and do it until it's done.
Yeah.
And do you only work on? No, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm going to say that the problem with, I find with editing is it's not a zone that you can get into. Like sometimes when you're writing, you can sit down there and you go and you just go and go and go, and it's great, yeah. But with editing, it just tires you out, and you start you find you start skipping stuff. So you can only do it X number of hours before you've got to take a break. Otherwise, you'll miss things. And so no word counting on the editing.
Yeah, I agree with that. As soon as I feel myself sort of scanning, you go from like really being specific because you know what's coming.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, that's when I'm like, all right, time for coffee. I gotta
right.
walk away.
Have you tried? There's another technique I use as well. I don't know if you've heard of this one. Editing backwards.
Yes, I've actually done. I did that on my first novel. I started with the last page and went backwards because somebody recommended that to me, and that helped to a point.
Paragraph at a time, going backwards, and then you just don't get involved in the story.
Right.
Because I mean, a lot of the problems is you're seeing the words in your head and not the words are actually on the screen. So it's
crazy when I've started writing in a font that is made for dyslexic people. It's called Open Dyslexic or Open Dyslexia.
Really?
Yeah, and the font is weighted. Like at the bottom, there is a weight to the letter that's not at the top. So when you're reading it, for some reason you can read it a lot better than just say like Times New Roman or something like that. It's actually made for people that have problems transposing words. So I do that all the time. Even when I'm typing, I'll be like,
interesting.
I'll type something and I'm like, he jumped above something, and I'll look at the word, think above, and type about, and see about, and then keep going, and then I'll catch it in the edit and going, that's supposed to be above, but typing in this other font, I see it easier than I would on the normal. It's really crazy.
Open Dyslexic.
Yeah, I'll send you the link for it.
Check that out. I want to know how that works.
It's a weird looking font. It almost looks like Comic Sans. And I
guess it would, yeah.
It's really interesting looking at it as part of your process. Like
I want to read the neuroscience behind that. Like why does having a heavy bottomed letter?
It's weird.
Huh.
But it works. One of the things I wanted to
have to do some research.
Yeah. I'll send you guys the link. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes for here. Thanks
for putting that in my head, Josh.
Hey, you're welcome.
I got time for it.
No. It's very interesting, and it's basically a pay what you think it's worth type deal. It's like a donation based thing. You purchase the font. I gave $5 to the deal, and they'll email you the links, and you can download all the fonts. And anyway, one of the things I wanted to ask you about before we start talking about Weaponized is a little bit of your process. Like when you're actually writing, I assume by what you're saying, you only work on one project at a time. So fundamentally, how do you go about your day if you're, from, the idea to, are you an outliner? And then how do you sit down and actually get the words on page? What's your process there?
Well, I think I'm what's described as a pantser.
Have
you heard that?
I have. The antithesis to everything that I believe in, and I will stick a flag in it all day long and say, you are wrong, sir, but continue.
No, for him though.
Yeah.
I'll sit down, I'll have a vague idea of where I'm going, and then I just write. And then all the ideas and everything comes to me as I'm writing. I mean, say I'm doing a new book. Okay, I'll sit down. I'll do my 2,000 words. It's just I'm just writing what next.
Yeah.
And then there's an idea occurs to me as I find a way to throw a spanner in the works, and then just see how I can work it out. And that's how I do it. 2,000 words. Then, I mean, on the next day, I'll edit through those 2,000 words and then go on with the next 2,000. And I was going to say, the reason I do, when I say I do 2,000 words, I try to stop right at that, even if I've got ideas and stuff to do the rest, to do more.
Yeah.
Because then that gives me the key in for the next day. Yeah.
I found that a lot. There are days like a couple of days ago, I hit 5,000 words and I was screaming, and I could have gone longer, but I was like, I need to stop because I've got the idea set in my head. And so if I stop here, I know exactly where I'm going to start the next day. And I did. I started and
so when you do that, when you stop for a day, you've still got some seeds there in your mind for where you're going to go. When you go back to it, do you go and reread anything you did the day before, or you just jump right in?
I read the last 2,000 that I did.
Okay.
I read the last 2,000 and edit through. But then, of course, the process will go on. When I've done X 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever, 1,000 words, I do start ripping things apart in previous writing to make things work in the future bits and whatever.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I take plot threads from characters' point of view, so different characters come, going on different routes. And I mean, later on, I mean, for example, a book, The Voyage of the Sable Keech. When I wrote that, I had so many plot threads coming towards like 100,000 words, whatever. That I thought, no, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to finish this. And that was a real ripping apart job. I took out plot. I've done this in many books, in fact, where I've taken out a plot thread, just taken it out, or I've combined two characters into one. And I've done, things like this. I mean, there's a story that was short story published in Asimov's called The Other Gun. Now that was a plot thread I took out of Dark Intelligence, turned it into a short story. So more work the further on I get into it, but I just do what next.
Yeah.
When you say that you have an idea of what the story is going to be, and then you start writing, is that the general idea of the whole story, or is that a general idea of one part of that story, and then you kind of develop it as you go? I'm genuinely curious, because when I start out, I'm a huge plotter, but I start out with the initial what if idea, and then as I'm plotting, I add things to the story to make it complete. So I'm interested in the process of sitting down and writing. Obviously, you're going to come to places in your writing where you hadn't planned for, and that changes how you're going to do things, or even can change the initial idea that you had.
Well, I mean, there's not a lot I plan for anyway when I'm doing it. It's I mean, I take the view that the writing process for me is as much a voyage of discovery as it is for the reader reading it. Yeah?
That's the fun part, in my opinion, is just that, because the way I do it is I have like points throughout the story, plot points I know I want to hit. I know I want this to happen roughly midway. I know how it's going to end, that kind of thing. But the distance between those, that's where I discover the roadmap from one to the other, and that's, to me, the discovery part is always the most fun. That's where you can really get in the groove and kind of get into that zone like you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll have a vague image of a scene, and I'll just follow the story through with the different characters and so on. And quite often, the ending will start resolving once I'm about 3/4 of the way through the book.
Right.
But I generally, sorry to say this, but I don't plan. I just don't.
Well, I mean, that works for a lot of people,
I mean, I don't know when you want to talk, if you want to talk about Weaponized yet.
Yeah.
Because the way that came about, the way that book came about is, I mean, that was a completely different thing as well, different process.
And let's talk about Weaponized for a minute, because most of the books you have written I want to say most of them are in your Polity universe, and they're built on series and things, and so now
this is in the Polity unit. Yeah,
it is in the Polity universe, but it's a standalone, right? Like it's not book 2 or book 1 in a series. It's a straight standalone. So let's talk about Weaponized a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you about this idea with the standalones.
Yeah.
I've written, God knows what is it, 30 odd books now. So I've got lots of trilogies. I've got the Cormac series, which is 5 books, and I've got about 4 trilogies, something like this. And I just made a conscious decision, like on the next, made a decision. All decisions are conscious. On the next contract I had with the publisher, I wasn't going to say, right, I'll do another trilogy, because trilogies and series, they don't give. There's only one entry point for a new reader. The first book,
right.
Not necessarily. I know people will read a second book and then they'll like that and then they'll go back. But I wanted to give more entry points for newer readers. So the next 3-book contract I had from Macmillan, I said, this is what I'm going to do. I want to do 3 standalones. And that's exactly what I've done. The first one was Jack 4. Yeah.
Right.
The next one, Weaponized. And then this other one that I've done is War Bodies. And they're all standalones. So that was the thing to do.
But they're all standalones in that will lead back to the Polity universe.
Yes, right. In the Polity universe, they sit in the in various parts of the very much extended timeline of the Polity universe. Weaponized sits at the in the Polity universe. You have the Praetor-human war, like the humans and the AIs against the crab-like Praetor, like a little bit like that one in Bad Traveling,
Yeah.
So you have the Praetor-human war, and I've never really written much about that. It's always referenced, except in Praetor Moon, the book, a small book called Praetor Moon. So I decided I wanted to set a story during the Praetor-human war. So Weaponized is set right at the start of that war, of that conflict.
I've got a couple more questions about that, but I want to talk about our show sponsor really quick before I forget.
Okay.
Because Chuck already reminded me that I forgot. And
I am useful, am I not?
Yes, thank you. So this week's sponsor, we haven't had a sponsor in a while. This week's sponsor is Hyperspace Outlaws, a space opera adventure by Luke T. Barnett, and I believe he's watching in the chat right now. Hello, Luke, if you're here. Holding a galaxy together ain't easy, especially when that galaxy is out to kill you. Doug Lancer is on the run when the peacekeeping military known as the Federation and the law enforcing Galactic Rangers join forces, forming the Galactic Empire. Things quickly go south, especially for anyone not on board. Hunted by his former brothers, Lancer is reduced to bounty hunting to survive. When his paths cross an ex-Imperial fighter pilot fleeing the Empire, things get even worse. Can he stick to his convictions and oath as a Ranger, or will he fold under the pressure? And how can he and the band of outlaws he teams with hope to stand up to the galaxy-spanning Empire without getting blown to space debris of doom? That is Hyperspace Outlaws by Luke T. Barnett. It's available on Amazon right now. The cover is fantastic. Let me see if I can zoom in here and share the cover, because it's a really I really like it. It really reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy. Hold on, let me see if I can. Let's see, share screen. We'll do that screen. Nope, that's not the right screen. That's not the right one either. There we go. Boom, there it is right there.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that one. That is a good looking cover.
I really like that out.
That just looks like a fun book to read. You know what I mean? It's just it's got that cowboy spaceman kind of thing going.
Yeah. Super cool. I really enjoy it. I think it's cool.
Hints of Brass Man there.
Yeah.
A guy with a cowboy hat.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love the cat that's got the gun that's bigger than he is.
The rocket ripoff.
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, right. That's.
So yeah, go pick it up. The link is in the live chat right now. It is a Amazon Associates link, so we get a little bit of kickback from that, like a couple, like 2-3 fractions of a cent if you purchase the book through Amazon. But do us a favor. Luke is a really good fan of the show, good friend of the community, and I highly recommend you to go pick up his book. And I think the second one's on pre-order. Yep, Artificial Malevolence is on pre-order right now, so you can pick that up as well while you're at it. So back to Weaponized. I'm really interested in presenting multiple, like, so I've written a couple of series too, and not as long or as in depth as your Polity universe. So I'm always interested to hear, because there's always things that you can't show in a book. There's always characters that you really can't dive deep into because of the nature of a specific book that you're working on. And so with Jack 4 and then with Weaponized and War Bodies, you get an opportunity to kind of look at the war from different perspectives, show things that haven't been shown. So when you sat down for this book, and then also Jack 4, if you don't mind, what specifically about the book excited you to tell the story, like that you weren't able to do in the other books?
Well, no, this is what I was going to say about Weaponized, how it's different. One thing I've been doing over the last few years is I wanted to get back to doing more short stories. Yeah. And what actually happened was I ended up writing novellas.
I have that problem too. I've got that problem.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You write a lot, you start to get verbal diarrhea. But
I always get the limit's 10,000 words, and I turn in one that's like 12,000. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So that, I mean, I was doing that. I was writing these novellas, and I mean, a load of them. I mean, when they were published in a book from, oh God, what's the name of the press? Lockdown Tales, like novellas that were written during all the lockdowns and so on.
I remember seeing that somewhere. Yeah, the covers really it reminded me of a like a really grimdark type of story. That just the cover. I'm sure that it's not all grimdark, but I remember looking at the cover going, "Oh, that's real creepy."
Yeah, I've got hold of that the artist that did that, and I'm getting him to do covers for all of the stuff that I've published personally on like Kindle and POD.
Oh, nice.
So that'll be doing a load of covers. But no, Weaponized.
Yeah,
I sat down to write another novella. Yeah, something short.
Yeah.
Or it was a short story, and I thought, no, this is going to turn into a novella anyway. But I was writing the main thread of the thing, but I started putting in bits of backstory, yeah. And I was finding that I was really enjoying putting in the backstory, and then I could see how the backstory could tie up to the ending. I mean, this is when I was like. When I finally admitted myself, this is not going to be a novella. Yeah, I kept writing the main thread, and then I kept zipping back to the main character is called Ursula. You know, it's a name that any science fiction writer has got to use at some time. Yeah.
True.
So I kept zipping back and doing the backstory, and then when I was three-quarters of the way, I was tying it all in to the actual payoff at the end of the book with the backstory. The backstory.
Okay, so the both threads kind of come together.
Right.
Yeah, it comes together like that. But that's how I write. I mean, it started off as a short story which was inevitably going to turn into a novella, which then turned into a book. But then what I also did with it is I had to muck about with the timeline. to make it work,
Right.
to make the pieces of because there's basically three threads. There's like a past, near past, present. Yeah. So I ended up breaking the whole thing up. So you don't follow through the backstory on one timeline and the near past on in a straight line.
Right.
So taking pieces of each which relate to what's going on in the present, and then steadily building towards the conclusion.
I love that. I love the just disjointed non-linear storytelling is some of the best, I think, the funnest experience to read or experience.
Another one with weapon in the title, isn't it? Is Ian M. Banks' use of weapons.
Oh,
that's
true.
That's the disjointed timeline as well. So
yeah. Do you find it easier or harder to? I mean, obviously you've lived and breathed this universe for years and years and years, right? But when you mentioned the timeline, it got me thinking on a grander scale. Do you find it easier or harder to go back and do these kind of stories, knowing that it potentially can conflict with other things that you have written already, and how do you deal with those conflictions?
Well, one thing I did when I actually created the polity, if you like, for the first time, and it was an amalgamation of various short stories, yeah. And then I just came up with this idea of like, well, I want to have a science fictional universe, but one in which I can tell just about any story, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing. It's a big universe. I mean, when somebody says to me, "Yeah, but this was happening in so and so a place. How does that affect what is happening here?" I say, "Well, it doesn't, because it's like 100 light years away." Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I mean, with the only conflicts I kind of get is the technology. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think that the technology that I visualized, if you like, is 20 years ago. Yeah. Like
right.
when I wrote Gridlinked, I mean, it was taken by Macmillan in 1999. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'd written it obviously before then, and I'd written the Skinner before then. So I've got a perception, a view of the technology from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I'm writing a story that's set in the same timeline, the same polity as Gridlinked and whatever, but the technology is different. Yeah, it's much weirder, much more complex. So
yeah, I've read some of my old stories from the 90s just kind of for fun. I did a cyberpunk series of short stories back then, and I read them now and I'm like, wow, that is really dated. I'm getting old.
Again, it's what I said earlier, isn't it? It's like it's antique futures.
Yeah. I love that. I love that phrasing, antique futures. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that you mentioned too about being hundreds of light years apart, and so they might not affect. I mean, how many things happen here on Earth that we have absolutely no idea what's going on? Like in, I don't know, some other country, or hell, even in the next town over, that doesn't affect us personally. So I don't think it's interesting that readers make that connection where something can happen on another planet, and why does it not affect this thing over here? Well, it's obvious. You can do something in your own town, and 3 streets over, it's not going to affect what they're doing.
And also it's also the timeline, timeline of the things. It's well, this happened 50 years before that, yeah, or 50 years after it. And you think in terms of our world, like how things change.
Oh yeah,
change in like 50 years. So I mean, also I put weaponized out of the polity anyway, because it's it's set on a colony world. Polity citizens, ex-military, going off to a extreme environment world to set up a colony.
So it's essentially brand new world building, brand new setting, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also relates to all sorts of the Praetor put in an appearance, and it also relates to something that has appeared in my books quite often, Jane technology. I don't know if you've
the name I recognize, but I don't know the context.
Well, it's there's 3 ancient races, and all of them extinct. One called the Jane, and pieces of their technology left lying around basically seize control if they give it enough energy and they come in contact with something intelligent. They seize control. It's a civilization destroying technology.
Gotcha.
Kind of based on, well, strangely, based on like fungal mycelia.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
It came from that. That's a little piece from my far past coming in there.
So you have War Bodies that you're editing now. Do you know when?
Well, no, I finished my edit of it.
Oh,
It's
okay.
now gone to the editor at Macmillan, who will go through it and then bang it back to me in a month or so.
And so we talked a couple of days ago when we did the sound check and things that you were doing 4 of these standalones. Is that right?
No, 3.
3. Okay, just 3. So War Bodies will
Yeah.
be the last of the standalone books. Do you have plans for the next book after War Bodies? Are you already starting to think about that, or how do you do that? How do you start the next process, the next project?
Well, I've got a couple of with this last contract, I did actually start on something, thinking I'll do a trilogy, and then as I was getting into that, I changed my mind. So then I did the standalones.
Yeah.
So I've got about 20,000 words of the start of a trilogy sitting there, and I've also got another false start from a number of years back, the start of another trilogy, which comes after the one that my trilogy that is not in the Polity universe, the Owner trilogy.
Oh, okay. I think I've read the first book in that.
Yeah, a bit grim.
Yeah. Yeah. What's now I'm drawing a blank on what that book was called.
The Departure.
The Departure. There you go. Yes.
And then the next one was 0 Point, and the next one was Jupiter War.
Yeah.
So I've got something like 20,000 words starting a new trilogy from that. So I don't know. We will see. I mean, what I want to do at the moment is get this short story collection that I've been editing done, because it will be a short story collection that will contain Bad Traveling, but it will also contain the 2 stories set in the same world that are kind of precursors to that, or not prequels, but they're set in the same world. One was called Jabel Sharks, and that's published in something else as well. And one's called Return of the Ship. But also in there, I'm putting in the 3 Mason's Rats stories.
Oh, that's cool.
They are available on Kindle, but the problem with them is that it's such a small quantity,
yeah,
that they can't be done as print on demand. And
right.
a lot of people would like to actually have a paper version of
Sure.
the Mason's Rats. So I'm including them in this thing. So I'll get all that done at some point. I've just worked out that, I mean, was it in the age of computers? I've got 35 stories I've gone through. And going back, I don't know, 30 years. And I was trying to figure out what order I want to put them in. Yeah.
Oh, right.
And this age of computers, of course, you know, should be able to put it up on the screen and all that. No, won't fit on the laptop screen. If I make it small enough to fit, I can't see them or whatever. And I've finally decided that the way I'm going to do it is I've got the list written out on a sheet of paper. Is I'll cut each title out into a little like that and arrange it like a bloody jigsaw just to figure out how I'm going to how I'm going to run the stories.
Right. Well,
I'll get that done, and then I want what I want to do is a Lockdown Tales 2.
You know, I have never been a big short story guy, but the more that I get, the better that I get at writing short stories, the more fun that I have writing shorts. I mean, writing novels is fun and it's fulfilling, and it's great. But I've never been the biggest short story guy. Like the common way of getting into the business, 20 years ago was, or 30 years ago, was writing short stories and getting kind of published there and then working your way in. Yeah. Well, now it's not like that anymore. Now it's backwards. Now you write novels and you indie publish, or you get an agent, or you submit, or whatever. And I didn't start writing short stories until after I'd written my first couple of novels, and I didn't get good at it until recently. And I absolutely love writing short stories now. And then reading them also it's fun to read short. You can do a lot of things with short stories that you can't do with novels.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure of doing something very concise.
Right.
Yeah. The impact with fewer words.
Right.
It goes down, doesn't it? You get your big series, your single novels, going down novellas, down to short stories and smaller. And then at the extreme end, it's poetry.
Yeah.
So it's like that.
Yeah. Well, we're right at the end of the show, but I want to ask you one more question before we let you go. As this, like I said before, the show's focused on writing. We focus on craft. After 30 years of doing this, doing short stories and novellas / novels and all that, what's the piece of advice that you would give to aspiring writers to improve their craft? What's the one thing maybe or two that you can think of that would help improve the beginning writer?
Right.
Indeed.
It's as simple as that. It really is. It's like when people say, like, well, somebody says, how do you write a book? It's the same question as how do you run a marathon?
Indeed.
Yeah. You start running. Yeah, and you run further and you run further and you learn in the process.
And don't stop till you're done.
Exactly. Yeah. It's as I say to people when they're asking about it, how did you get in there to do all this? And it's like, it's not the Freemasons, mate. You're not gonna get in because you have one sock rolled down and the special handshake. You've just got to do the work.
Yeah. I often wonder when people ask questions like that, if what they really want to ask is, how do you get a book deal?
Right.
Because a lot of them, they just sort of skip over the whole, I have to write the book part, and they just go straight to the somebody gives me money for it part,
Well,
like, wait a minute, slow your roll. You can't.
I've said it before too, like
steps.
With the the invention of the indie publishing, and now the kind of the marketplace that we're in right now. People come into it and they're like, how should I do this? And I think about it and I go, well, the way I did is I started writing 24 years ago, and I'm just now to the part where I think that I'm good, and I'm still improving after 24 years of writing. And so it's
right. If you ever think that you can't improve, that's the point when you should just basically stop, I think.
Yeah.
Well, 100% agree with you. Always learning.
True.
Which is part of the reason we do this show.
Exactly.
It's more for me, so I can learn. If people watch and they get something, then that's fine. But I'm selfish. I do this show for me. Neal, thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure to talk with you and spend some time with you. Everybody else that was in the live chat, thanks for adjusting your schedules today. We're going to have to be, I don't know if we're going to have to look at adjusting the regular showtime here in about a month or two. We'll figure it out. Scott's getting a different position on the department that I can't say really what it is now. It's because it hasn't been public, but I know what it is. He knows what it is. And it's going to affect our broadcast times to keep him on the show. So we'll be talking about that and discussing that, and we'll let everybody know kind of where we land on that. But it's definitely not going to be in the mid-afternoon like it has been. But we'll figure something out and keep the show going. I'll love you guys hanging out with us on Mondays and spending your time, hopefully gaining something from our fun little show here. No, Tom, no, he's not the chief of police. No, he is not. He's not.
He broke bad.
Yeah, that's right. But again, Neal, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you'll come back and hang out with us again sometime.
That'd be great. Yep.
All right, everybody, we're going to get out of here with that. I hope you have a great Monday. I hope your writing week is fantastic this week, and we'll come back next Monday where we're going to talk about some reading, some writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. Peace.
Later, guys.